Hello. Welcome to Mindful Mirror. My name is Andrea, and if you saw the introduction video, you know that this video will be spent with me sharing my testimony, my the beginning of my relationship with God and backstory. I grew up identifying as Christian. That's what I learned through family. And I went to church occasionally. It wasn't every Sunday. I didn't attend Bible studies, but I just learned that there's a God in heaven, in the sky, watching over everything I do, every single thing. So God knows when you're when you're bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. um, that's Santa Claus. But that's how I saw God, as being someone that is watching everything I do and be good, because if not, you're going to go to hell. So do everything you can to go to heaven. And that was a lot of pressure for me. So I went through my early stages of life afraid to do anything. And if I did do something that I thought was shameful to God, I felt that. I carried that shame with me, that guilt, feeling that I had done something wrong. And it didn't feel good to live that way, because I only saw God as being a reprimander, someone that is a punisher, and not someone that is a rewarder. And from up until my junior year of college, I that's the way I was moving through life, and my the view I had of God. And at that point, junior year of college, 2015, I began to feel alone, and I didn't see anyone close to me that I could really speak to about what I was going through. I didn't think anyone understood me. So I learned about journaling, and it was a awkward experience, because I was thinking, what am I supposed to write about? How is it supposed to work? And I started out writing to God, saying, Dear God, and just pouring out my heart. At that point, I was also learning about different content creators that were also Christian, to be inspired through them as well. And once I returned home from college the following year, I began going to church faithfully every Sunday. And from that point, following or joining Christian groups on social media, and connecting with other believers. So I felt good about my relationship with God. I felt good being a Christian and going to church. I was very, very into it. And I was even strict, because I had a set of standards that I thought I should follow. And I judged myself harshly if I went outside of those standards. I judged other people harshly for going outside of those standards. And it was very miserable, because when I went outside of those standards, I didn't know the love of God. Yes, I was going to church, but all I knew, I still had that same God is a punisher in my mind. And I was not authentic. I was still not comfortable sharing every part of my story with the people around me, because of that shame and guilt that I carried. I did not want to be criticized for my choices, so I hid things. I, even in my journal writings during that time, I tried to keep it as pretty as possible, as if God didn't already know what was going on. And during that time, I was also going through a difficult dating experience, and I felt stuck. I cried out to God, and I would share with a few people how painful it was, and I just cried and said, God, whatever it is that is attracting me to this person, please remove it, because I kept going back, although I knew it was not working for me. It just did not make sense, but it makes sense after going through that experience, because I was insecure. I was afraid of being alone. I thought that person at the time was my last hope for a relationship. So I tolerated it, and I learned to be a fighter throughout my life. I learned to fight that things can work out. You just got to fight for it, and it'll get better. So that's what I was hoping for. I saw the potential in that relationship and wanted it to be better, wanted to be good enough to receive love, because I thought I couldn't understand what I did to deserve poor treatment from that person. And I later discovered that I wasn't my best self. So, how can I receive better if I'm not treating myself well, if I'm not accepting love from God, if I am not taking care of myself in all aspects, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally? How can I receive what God has for me? Because I felt stuck for so long, it made sense that God wasn't giving me more, because I couldn't even handle what I had, even though I thought I was doing it all right. And so, stepping out of that relationship, I was prepared to not go down that same path again, and remove that person from my life. However, that wasn't all I had to do, and I realized that is it. I was still in a period of blaming other people and not fully taking accountability for my actions, because I was just a hot mess. So so that was 2017, 2018. Now the following year, 2019, I entered grad school, still a Christian, still hard on myself and strict. And I during that time, I became flexible, interacting with different people that have different beliefs. And I slowly lost my belief in God and Christ. And I identified as spiritual. And I took inspiration wherever it came from. So I developed an interest in crystals, tarot cards, praying to the universe, to the ancestors. I still acknowledged the Creator. I still acknowledged the Most High, but I did not see them as God. I did not follow Jesus Christ. And because of that, there was no relationship with God. So my journey in as identifying as spiritual, it wasn't terrible, because I still accepted that there was a higher being. I accepted that I didn't have it all figured out. And that was the first time, actually, I give a lot of credit to my spiritual journey because going through that is what got me here, which is why I can say it wasn't terrible because I actually learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how I show up in the world. And before I get into leaving the spiritual identity, I'll spend more time talking about what that was like for me. And during that time, so that was 2020 up until recently of 2023. And in spirituality, I in learning from myself or about myself, I was able to remove all of the expectations and the pressure I felt to be perfect. I began to accept myself as just being human, not having the answers. And I will give some credit to, excuse me, being in grad school as a clinician in training of in couple and family therapy. For those of you that did not know, I am an associate therapist currently. So in grad school, I learned about myself, about relationships, how to improve relationships, and because of that, I have a lot of compassion for where I was at the time, and I'm able to look back at those experiences and learn from them. And because of where this video is, looks like I will be pausing and you will just have to stay tuned for part two. Is it getting juicy? Maybe. I hope so because I this is my story, so if it's not entertaining, that's your opinion. However, I want to keep you engaged and really break down my story because as I said it's going to be long and I do want you all to hear what each stage was like for me. So stay tuned. Thank you for being here with me in this video and see you in the next one. Bye bye.